Good morning, folks. This is Michael. Looks like we're getting a little bit of snow here in Wyoming already. It's rolling in. Just got this dusting just the other day, I think, and as you can see, a lot of the trees turning yellow, so it's getting to that time of year. But here on the chopping block today, we got the battle of two different of my favorite knives, actually, that I've owned so far in the collection. And I wanted to do a side-by-side kind of comparison because this is my first time I've ever owned two different Chris Reeve knives at the same time. So I thought this would be a fun video to do and kind of tell some people who maybe are in the market for something like this what they might want to go with, depending on their taste and what the features are they're looking for in the knife. So anyways, for those of you unfamiliar, or for those of you who are looking at Chris Reeve for the first time, this is the Umnumzaan pattern from them. In Zulu, this means the boss. Chris Reeve was from South Africa, and I guess Zulu is his theme he was going with for a lot of his knives as far as naming them. And this one here is the Sebenza, and this is the Zulu word for work. So we have work and the boss. Anyways, I have had the pleasure of owning both of these now for, this one's pretty new, but I've had this one now for, I don't know, a few months now. And it's quickly become one of my favorite knives that I have in the collection. But there's a few key differences, and I wanted to showcase those and kind of show off what they, what they could maybe do for you in different ways. So let's just move out the Sebenza over here for the moment, and we'll take a look at the Umnumzaan. So the Umnumzaan has pretty basic, simple construction to it. It's only got these really large pivot hex bits. I believe they're hex. And a couple of spacers in the back there. So this one here is actually part of the frame that comes with the knife. And this standoff that goes in here is normally the lanyard tube area, but mine came with that, so I just leave it like that, and that's it. It doesn't have a stop pin. It doesn't have, nearly the same detent system as the Sebenza does, And if you actually look here, you can kind of see the system. So there's the hole, comes out, goes back around, and then the hole clicks into there, and the detent ball is in that system right. It'd be kind of hard to see it maybe, but it is in there. So it's a different system altogether as to how they do the lockup on the Umnumzaan. But whatever formula they have going here, it makes it really, really fantastic. I really like it. It's the smoothest Chris Reeve knife that I've ever owned, without a doubt. I mean, the action is just superb. It's smoothness on another level. Really, truly. And I really enjoy this style of construction, with the external stop pins here, using the thumb studs and the over travel stop for the lock bar, so that you don't have the capability of bending this out. I've never had the circumstance happen where this could even get bent out for me at all, so I don't truly understand over travel stops. I think that they're handy to have just in case, I guess, but anyways, it's a cool little detail, and it has the Chris Reeve stamp in there, which I think is really nice. This plain titanium texturing, it's not plain, I guess, because it has this milling into it, but it's plain besides that, and it feels really, really good in hand. I think the ergonomics of the Umnumzaan are some of the best, in my opinion. Obviously a very different style of blade profile here. You have this dip swoop for, I think it's for your either index finger to do utility cutting, or your thumb to lay up on here and really bear down on something. And then it has the rest of the drop point here with this piercing tip. Yeah, so it's very unique. It's a style all its own for sure. So then you can compare it to the Sebenza, right? So this is their classic drop point. And if you really look at the two side by side, it's almost the same deal. They just kind of added that piercing tip to the Umnumzaan, and then they made that dimple right after the thumb studs. So it's very, very similar. I think the drop point from Chris Reeve is the best blade shape for me personally. They have the Insingos, and they're more of a sheep's foot style blade, which is still handy, but I just have a thing for drop points and clip points and that kind of stuff. So this is my style. But I think Chris Reeve's drop point is some of the best here, and the Sebenza really executes everything really well in that category, I think. Now, this is the newer models. This is the 31, and they had the 21s before this. So this is actually a different version where they changed the micarta layout here, and they did it in a more solid strip instead of two separate strips. You know, they didn't have that hole in here anymore in the front face like they used to. But the Sebenza's construction is a little more complicated and not too much different, but you're going to have your stop pin up here behind the tang, and then you're going to have this rear standoff here. And I mean, in reality, it's kind of the same deal, having these two, except for this isn't normally here. So construction wise, it's a little more complicated, but nonetheless, it's really well put together, and the tolerances are great. You know, overall fantastic. Now, one thing you'll notice about the two, on the lock side at least, is they just ran the clip for the Umnumzaan straight up and down, and that lands on the lock bar. Doesn't affect anything, you know, I don't think, at least. With the Sebenza, they moved it off of the lock bar, and it lays actually on the other side of the titanium here, on the other side of this milling cutout here. So orientation in the pocket is a little bit different. You know, the Umnumzaan actually kind of sits more straight up and down in your pocket, and I think it takes up less real estate, so I like that. Whereas this one, it will kind of come in at this angle almost, and it has kind of a curvature coming into your pocket. So that's just one thing to note, you know, nothing major, but something I've noticed. I will say another thing is the action. The Umnumzaan is fantastic. It's glassy, it's very, very smooth, open or shut, no trouble at all. However, the Sebenza, it's still possible to flick it out like that, but it's much more of a slow roller, which is fine. I think that has mostly something to do with the detent inside there. I don't know exactly what it leads to, but could be the detent, could be the washers. Not 100%. You can get this smoother. This is a fairly newer large, I believe. This was made in 22, if I remember correctly. You can kind of see it inside the, maybe you won't be able to with the sun, but if you look inside right in there somewhere, I don't know if it'll pick it up. It's right in here. You can see P22, and I believe my Umnumzaan is the same. This is C22. Yeah, let's see. I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up, but it's right there. So actually, both of these knives are made the same year. So this is both 2022 production year. So very cool, kind of. I like having that deal. I think they even have close birthdays. I believe this is in August and this is in October. That's just kind of a side note thing, but I got some fall-y knives here. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee real quick. While you take in the view here. Okay, back to the comparison here. I will say another thing that I haven't been the craziest about with the Sebenza, as opposed to the Umnumzaan here, is the takedown. So the takedown for the Umnumzaan is very simple, very easy. I don't have any crazy things I need to do to get this thing back together. And they encourage you to kind of disassemble and understand your knife. It's one thing I appreciate about Chris Reeve. They don't mind if you do that kind of stuff and take it apart. They give you a guide with all the parts lists and everything with it, so kind of a handy thing. But the Sebenza is very temperamental, I will say. So I've taken this apart 2 or 3 times now already. And it's been a struggle to kind of get it back tuned where it was when I first got it. I probably shouldn't have fiddled with it. It had some fluorinated grease on the pivot, and it was kind of a slopped on there deal. I don't know. The action was good on it, but I wanted to take it apart so that I could mess around with the micarta on this, and just to kind of clean up my washers and polish them and mess around with them a little bit. But it's not nearly as smooth as it was when I first got it, and it's also not as smooth as the Umnumzaan is. I mean, it's just glassy with the Umnumzaan. It just, you kind of have to get it past that first detent point, but the action is superb. You really don't have to put a whole lot of effort into it. So construction, takedown and all that was a little more challenging, I will say. I'm not going to say that it's impossible, but if you do end up taking your Sebenza apart, just so you know, in the Umnumzaan disassembly and assembly, you can take this apart. You can lay down your lock side scale. You can lay your blade and your washers in there, and then you can lay your show side scale and a couple other pieces that you need to here, you know, in any order. Cinch it down, you know, relatively, not all at once, but, you know, one at a time. And then you can kind of do your final tightening and all that stuff. And the Umnumzaan broke in fantastically. It hasn't had an issue. Didn't have to mess with it at all. The Sebenza tried to do the same formula, and there was pinching going on here in the pivot. The blade wasn't lined up right. It was rubbing on the show side, and it was just giving me a lot of trouble. Now, I've since understood that you needed to kind of put the scales together first, and then you sandwich in the blade and the pivot and all that stuff in afterwards, because that's how crazy the tolerances are on these, is that this all needs to be together before the blade and everything goes in. So that was a well-known fact by people who have owned Sebenzas for a long time, and I'm just new to the game, you know, always late to the game. But bottom line is, it was a lot more of a pain to do this than it should have been, I think, and I don't really know why that is, but I wouldn't say it takes away from the knife, but I will say that it is something you can't do fast or in a pinch, or you know, maybe if you're away from your desk where you usually work on stuff, it's not a great idea to try to take it apart because you might not get it back correctly. Whereas like a field stripping of the Umnumzaan, you're not going to have an issue, I don't think. I think it'll be a quick process if you needed to clean it out and all that stuff, and then get it back together and, you know, put it back into use. You won't have much issue with the Umnumzaan. The Sebenza, definitely you would, I think. So just a couple of key points that I've noticed, you know, through my use with both of them. Now, another great thing that I've noticed between both blades is they're both really great hollow grinds. So I wouldn't have a complaint on either one of these. The blade stock is really, really nice. It's thin, and the grinds are done very well on both of these. Now, I don't have calipers or any of that kind of stuff on me, but I have seen in previous other videos from folks that the Umnumzaan apparently is ground a little bit thinner in their hollow grind, and I don't know that for sure, but that's just what I've been told. However, you know, there's not a single issue with the sliceability. Now, this is a little bit dull, so just don't mind that, but both slice great. Yeah, so anyways, kind of a bad point there, but regardless, you get the idea. These both need to be touched up as I use them pretty often, but I will say in hand though, now we were talking a little bit about ergonomics and such. I think the Sebenza with the inlays, very comfortable, very, very comfortable. It kind of feels like you have a bounce pad here on one side to just squeeze and grip into, and your hand, you know, wouldn't take as much abrasion then if you're working on something, you know, where you're maybe having more abrasive movement with it. It's very comfortable in hand, extremely. The ramp and everything feels great. Pinch grips for this are fantastic. You can grab right into that part of the inlay, grab in there and get your cut going, whatever you're doing. Very nicely done. And the size, I think, is perfect. I have pretty large hands, relatively longer fingers and stuff. And this one here is perfect. I like the Sebenza's feel. I think it's great. You also have this little itty bitty kind of choke up spot really here. It's not quite a choke up spot, but it would prevent some cardboard or from anything you're cutting getting into that pivot from there if you throw your finger there. So kind of nice. And then the Umnumzaan is much more slender in hand. You know, I think side by side the Sebenza is thicker overall, as you can see. The titanium is just more streamlined on the Umnumzaan, I would say, and the Sebenza's is kind of bulgy, you know, just it has that rounded curvature to it, that kind of stuff, where the Umnumzaan is more squared edges and stuff. However, I think the Umnumzaan still feels fantastic in hand. I really like how they do the butt of this knife. They give you this kind of curvature here as well, and you can kind of slam that corner of the standoff just right up in your palm nice, and I think it's great. If you have a little bit smaller hands than me, I think the Umnumzaan would feel really great for you personally, as it's kind of a longer skinny knife, and I still have great purchase on this, and I really enjoy the ergonomics of it, but it is where I can feel there's a slight amount of material maybe missing to fill the rest of my grip up perfectly. You know, I have to bend my fingers a little bit further, it feels like. So just a thing to note with that one. And then the Sebenza, I don't feel that way. It fills up my hand all the way. You know, even my finger placement ends up kind of where I'm not even barely touching my palm, and I still have lots of material here. You know, it's a thicker knife, so kind of nice that way. And the micarta adds a lot to that as well. You know, some people debate about what they want, you know, if they want a PJ, plain Jane Sebenza, or they want one with the micarta inlays. I know that like the smalls in particular, I think that micarta is probably a good option, or some kind of inlay, because it'll fill in that material a lot more for you. You know, this being a large and micarta really fills up the hand pretty great. So if you're looking for something that's going to fill your hand a little bit better, be comfortable, that kind of stuff, I think the Sebenza might win you over there. And you can get a variety, which is kind of neat with these. You can get L4, I think it's called. It's like a white micarta. It looks like it's supposed to imitate ivory bone. You can get wood, you can get micartas, you can get some of the old Sebenzas, and there is some newer ones, I believe, but they have mammoth if you really want to get fancy. There's quite a few different inlays, but Sebenza offers a lot of customization, I will say. So you're going to get a lot of different options with the Sebenza. You can get, you know, double lugs on here. This is a kind of a standard deal with the Sebenzas, where they just throw one lug on the side that you're going to open it. I'm a right-handed person, so it's on the right side, or it's on the left side of the blade, but you know what I mean. So there's that. The other deal with the Umnumzaan, you're going to get double lugs right out of the gate. No questions, ifs, ands, or buts. So you get two different lugs on both sides. You're going to get gaskets that go on here to actually make it softer. I took one of mine off because I like the click of the open and shut more. So I just have one on there for comfortability, and then the other one's off. You can throw both on, and it kind of silences the sound more on these. So that's one thing. I wanted to point out also that the thumb ramp right up here, nearly identical. So not much different there. I think you're going to have a great purchase on your thumb either way. And I really like that about Sebenzas, that the ramp comes out of the scales and onto the outside of the knife, kind of to give you a little bit extra when you're in this grip position here. So I like that. Let's see, what else is there? How about I take another drink real quick here and let me ponder this for a second. Okay, so another thing between the two is that blade steel is very similar. So Umnumzaans used to be made with S35 VN, so were Sebenzas. And then they changed to S45VN, which is both of these. I have S45VN on this one and this one. And then they also come in MagnaCut these days. So you have a lot of steel options. And no matter which Chris Reeve you're going to go with, I think, you know, you can find one that works for you. I really, really like their S45VN on both of these. I think they're done very well. It holds an edge great. It's easy to bring it back. And their stainless properties are great. I think, you know, it's kind of just a great middle of the line steel for me. I enjoy it. So, you know, if you're debating on steel or any of that kind of stuff, you don't have to worry about it. You can find them in any of those orientations. So that's one thing to consider. This has the same finish on the titanium as well. This is their sandblasted finish. You can get these glass blasted to get a little more of a smooth kind of finish that won't tarnish. So that's another thing. I like the sandblasted though, because you can kind of paint your own canvas on these, and you know, it creates a story. You know, through use, you're gonna get scratches and dings and all that good stuff on there, and I think that just adds to the knife, you know, so that's kind of neat. But I mean, size wise, as you can see, they're both about the same almost. You know, like I said, you're going to get a little bit of a slimmer package with the Umnumzaan. So if you're looking for something that you're not going to notice in your pocket very much, but it's a big bruiser of a knife still, you can count on the Umnumzaan for that one. You know, where the Sebenza is going to fill your pocket a little bit more, but not by too much. Shoot, yeah, I don't know. The relief cutouts for the lock bar is exactly the same. They do a lot of the same construction that way. I will say access to the thumb studs is going to be a little tougher with the Umnumzaan at first until it breaks in, and then you can see it just you don't have any issue with it after that. You know, it's going to fly open every time with ease. You're going to have a different relief there for the lock bar though, I will say. So with the Sebenza, they give you plenty of real estate to get in there, close the knife, not a problem. Same deal kind of with the Umnumzaan, but they didn't cut out the show side scale to do that. They extended the lock bar technically with this little spoon area, and that's your shut. But either way you look at it, you're going to throw your index finger up here in the front and grab at the front, or get into that lock bar area, and that's your spot for your index finger, right? Same deal with the Umnumzaan. You're just going to throw it up here. There's your little curve. Bam. So some people complain about this being a hot spot. I really can't sense a huge difference. I mean, the Sebenza a little bit smoother maybe, but your finger's going to go generally in the same area. So, I mean, it's kind of potatoes, tomatoes deal, at least in my eyes. So, yeah. Shoot, well, this is going on a pretty long video here. I think I pretty much covered what I wanted to with the two, though. If you're going to get either one, you know, I don't know that I want to make that choice for you, but I've laid out kind of my thought process on both of them, and I'm happy to own both. If you can have both, buy both. I think that's a great option. But if you can only buy one, then you kind of have to go through your checklist and see what works best for you. So I appreciate you guys watching. Good luck on your hunt if you're getting your first Chris Reeve. And yeah, if you like this video, like it down below, please, before you head out. And comment down below. Let me know which is your favorite. And that kind of stuff. So, and subscribe if you'd like to. It costs you nothing. It only helps the channel grow and get my reach out there a little bit further. So yeah, anyways, that's gonna do it. See you later.